So now that we've examined or explored the field data in SPSS, let's do the same thing in SAS. So as you can see, I've logged into SAS Studio and I've opened the field data program that I saved before. This is exactly as it was produced in the previous video by generating the import code. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit because I actually don't need these lines and I don't need these lines right now. So what I have left here is so I'll go ahead and add a comment that describes what that first line does, and then I'll add a comment for the second line as well. And so now I've commented that up. I'm going to go ahead and save my program. So now it's cleaner. Now when I run this, it's going to show me that it did in fact create the data file. Now I can look at that here in the Output Data tab, and I'll go ahead and click back on Code. But I can also look, if I click here on Libraries, in the Work library, I should see field data. And if I double click this, this is the native database format that SPSS or that SAS uses, and so I can explore this table this way as well. You can see the data is right there as entered. I'm going to go back to my server files and folders, close this, back to my data program. Now I want to explore the contents of this data by summarizing some of the contents. Now to examine these frequencies, we're going to use proc freq. Now as I type that in, you can see that it starts to recognize the commands that it knows, and then gives me some documentation here off to the side. This is a very useful way to familiarize yourself with the ins and outs of the procedures that you want to use. So in this window, I'm going to find product documentation and click on that. Now it runs a search on the support site, and you'll find several entries here that you don't actually want. The two that are most useful though is you'll usually see one that says overview of a particular statement, and that will give you a text description of what that statement does and what it might be used for. And then there's also the one that says proc freq statement. I'll normally come into here and it gives you sort of an overview here, and then under syntax it will break down each individual line to give you more detail on what options are available on that line of the command, and how it works. There's also a very helpful set of examples, so you can sort of click through here and it describes how it's analyzing the data. It'll give you the code that analyzes the data. So exploring this documentation can really help you navigate SAS. For this, however, I'm going to do a very, very simple command. So I've simply told it that I want it to use the data in field data in the work library. I want it to generate a table for the job variable, and I haven't given it any other information, just told it to run. When I click the running man, this is what I'll get. So now my output shows me the default freq table, which shows the frequency for each entry of student and lecturer. And just like in SPSS, it gives me the percent. Then there's the cumulative frequency and the cumulative percent as well. The cumulative frequency and the cumulative percent are generally more useful when you are working with ordinal data. so that you can get a sense of what percent of your data set falls at that level or lower. That's how we might explore a categorical variable. Now, let's explore a continuous variable. So again, just to generate the default table, I'm doing proc means, again, pointing it to the field data. The variable that I want to analyze is friends, and I'm telling it to run. So when I run this, I get this output. So the mean number of friends is 7.8, with the standard deviation, the minimum, the maximum, the same numbers that we saw in the previous video working with SPSS. Now, in SPSS, we were able to compare the mean number of friends for both students and lecturers. So I'm actually going to generate that as a new line so you can see the comparison. Basically what I'm going to do here is add another line. So I'm still using proc means, but I've included a by statement now. So it's going to show the means of the variable friends by the respondent's job. Now, I'll go ahead and run the entire program so you can see all three of those tables next to one another in the output. Now I notice when I run this that there was an error. Up in the title bar you can see the little X with the circle around it. So I can go to the log screen to investigate what has happened, and it'll tell me right here that the field data is not sorted in ascending sequence. So it's actually looking at the by variable and wants to see the data sorted according to that variable. So we need to add a sort statement. So I'll include a sort there before I run that. There we go. So now we've got the frequency. There's 5 students, 5 lecturers. It gives us the means of the entire sample. So the mean number of friends is 7.8. And then we've split it out according to students and lecturers. So students have an average number of 13.2 friends. Lecturers have an average number of 2.4 friends. Clearly, students are a bit more social. So now, using these same methods, you can analyze any of the other variables. And if you can't remember exactly what one of the variables is titled so that you can use it in your code, you can go to libraries and open up the data set, and the variable names are across the top here. So job, friends, alcohol, income, neuroticism. We'll work with name and birth date a bit later. Go ahead and try to replicate this analysis with some of the other variables, see if you can explore those variables, and then we'll dive into the other stuff.